This video is sponsored by celebstory.com. History is replete with many national leaders who are described as tyrants and totalitarian despots, and the continent of Africa has had more than its share. However, there are a select few of these leaders who have earned the description of psychopath for actions that go far and beyond the iron rule they imposed upon their people to maintain power. President Idi Amin Dada Oumee of Uganda was one of these madmen, and he ruled Uganda from 1971 to 1979. How did Idi Amin rise from humble origins to high military rank and then president? What did he do to become perhaps the most feared national leader in Africa? Was he truly a psychopathic mass murderer?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, a veteran of the United States Army and Marine Corps, former history professor, book author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
Idi Amin Dada Oumee was born in Uganda's northwest region, near the borders of Sudan and Congo. He belonged to the Kakwa tribe, indigenous to Uganda by his father, while his mother was a Lugbara. Kakwa extended into the Congo and Sudan as well. While his exact birth date is unknown, estimated between 1923 and 1928, as there is no birth certificate, it is believed that he was born around 1925, although Amin's son, Hussein, has stated that his father was born in Kampala in 1928. Amin's father was a farmer, and they considered themselves Nubian, and Amin would be a protector and loyal to them as ruler of Uganda. His parents separated when he was a small child, and he and his mother, Asa Ate, moved to Bambo in 1941, where he was enrolled in a Muslim primary school, much older than the other students, but Amin's formal education ended at the 4th grade level. However, despite his formative years being stinted, he learned English and spoke Kiswahili as well as his tribal dialect. As he grew into a young man, he reached 6 foot 4 inches tall and was powerfully built. And with a limited education and a seemingly comfortable ability to take orders, he joined the military in 1946. Amin was an impressive athlete, and his lack of formal education belied an intense intellect. He mastered the arts of soldiering, weapons, tactics, and absorbed the British discipline. Amin joined the British King's African Rifles in 1946 as an assistant cook, and was later transferred to Kenya for infantry duty in 1947, serving in the 21st KAR Infantry Battalion in Gilgil, Kenya, until 1949. Meanwhile, Amin had been noticed by his British superiors regarding his abilities and leadership, and was promoted from private to corporal. He earned further distinction fighting against the Mau Mau in Kenya during that rebellion and suppressing rebels in Somalia. He knew how to stand out, and he was a natural athlete, competing in swimming, rugby, and boxing. Idi Amin won the Amateur Uganda Light Heavyweight Boxing Championship in 1951, and he held that title until 1960, most victories being by knockouts, not decisions. Promoted to sergeant around 1954, he was given a platoon of soldiers, and he was considered an effective yet stern, charismatic leader able to maintain discipline. In 1957, he was promoted to sergeant major and was in command of a company, then a battalion. His previously recorded ruthless application of measured violence in combat was highly appreciated. His discipline among his own men was noteworthy. In 1959, Amin was promoted to the rank of Effendi Second Class, or Warrant Officer, the highest rank available to native-born soldiers in Uganda at that time. In 1962, he was promoted to captain, and by 1963, Amin was the highest-ranking native-born Ugandan in the military with the rank of major, and in 1964, he was promoted to full colonel. But during his period in Kenya, the dark side of Amin started to emerge. While in Kenya, his men were sent on a patrol to locate cattle thieves, arrest them, and return the cattle to their owners, who supplied the army with beef. Amin's unit was investigated for murder, butchering the thieves, and when the British authorities in Nairobi exhumed the bodies, they discovered that the thieves had been tortured and beaten to death, with some being bound and buried alive. Celebstory.com, the world's only website that shows photos of famous people in chronological order by date, so you see the person's progression from young to old. Cool, right? Here you can find personalities of all fields, from musicians and actors to scientists, leaders, and even criminals. Plus, it's wiki-based, so anyone can upload pictures or create new galleries. The website evolves in real time and absorbs new, interesting, and rare photos every day. Because of contributors like me and, I hope you, the website is growing fast, and soon people will use celebstory.com as a resource as often as they use Wikipedia. So kids around the world, as well as researchers, will have a huge source of updated info, well protected from AI fakes. Look what I uploaded yesterday to John F. Kennedy's page. There's already a thread with comments and likes. Let's upload a few more to JFK. The system gives me points for each upload. When I have enough, I can spend them on uploading to the special category intended for real-life heroes. It can be for any person who did something remarkable, maybe even your friend or relative. Besides the points, 3 users who gained the most points during the month will get this trophy, made from the American steel with a unique engraving. I will personally choose the quotes that will be engraved on the first 3 items. So, act now and get your trophy. The award cycle starts today and will be combined throughout this month and December. The awards points will be tallied on the 1st of January. As a bonus to the trophy, 3 champions will also get a powerful flashlight, a high-end multi-tool or premium lighter, all with the Celeb Story engraving. So, create your celebstory.com account now. History and timing were friendly to Amin, and he avoided prosecution on murder charges, as being in charge would have made him responsible. The main factor was that Uganda was gaining its independence from Britain on October 9, 1962. At that time, Uganda had 4 kingdoms, and their rulers were the Omugabe of Ankole, the Omukama of Bunyoro, the Kabaka of Buganda, or King Edward Matusa II, and Wandiasi of Lango. All of them joined Obote in signing the agreement between Uganda's kings and British Governor Sir Frederick Crawford. Due to the possibility of rivalry and conflict between the kingdoms, the British supported the appointment of Milton Obote as Prime Minister, and the British officials decided not to prosecute Amin or any of his soldiers. As a result, Obote then promoted Amin and sent him to the UK for further formal military training. When Amin returned, he and Obote started a smuggling operation out of the Congo, everything from precious metals to ivory and exotic animals for the global market. In return, they wanted weapons, as Obote left it to Amin to build the military up into a competitive force in Africa. As the illegal operations came to light, there were Ugandans who opposed Obote's abuse and Amin's enforcement. In fact, King Matusa II of Buganda, part of the old Ugandan protectorate and a semi-independent kingdom, was opposed to these actions. According to the terms of the independence, the kings were to equally govern the country with Obote as the prime minister. Matusa wanted an international investigation into Obote's corruption, but Obote superseded events by arranging to have his own investigators clear him of any criminal activity. However, all was still not good for Amin. In 1966, the Ugandan parliament charged him with stealing $350,000 worth of gold and ivory from guerrillas in the Congo, who supplied them in the hope of trading those items for weapons. That was actually a deal that Obote had set up with Amin's enforcement, but Obote escaped any scrutiny because Amin's soldiers arrested the 5 cabinet ministers who questioned the operation, and then Obote suspended the constitution, declaring himself president, in essence, dictator. 2 days after Obote's declaration, Amin was put in charge of Uganda's entire military services and all operations. 2 months later, Obote sent tanks and soldiers under Amin to attack the palace of Mutesa II, forcing him to leave the country. The other kings fell in line. At that time, Obote was then in charge of the government as a true dictator in the mold of Stalin or Hitler, and Amin was placed in command of all of the military, security, and police forces, to include the security for the parliament, with which Obote and Amin were at constant odds. The parliament had also wanted clarification as to the financial and real estate holdings of both men in foreign countries, such as a chalet in Switzerland and expensive automobiles whose price tags far exceeded their government salaries. Amin's replacement of their security details with his own hand-picked thugs was to serve as a warning to these elected officials. There were also issues with charges of tax evasion and bank fraud by both Obote and Amin. Although never proven, the disappearance of a parliament-appointed forensic accountant was blamed on both men. There was no evidence that either man had anything to do with the disappearance, but it was well known, many years later, that those who crossed Amin ended up being fed to the crocodiles that infested the White Nile River and its headwaters at Lake Victoria. While Obote was on an official state visit to Singapore, Amin, now a general and the senior military leader in Uganda, planned his coup to overthrow Obote. Amin had learned that Obote was going to have him arrested and charged with illegal activities just to cover himself and deflect from his own participation. Now, the British, still with interest in the country economically, were alarmed by Obote's nationalist ambitions regarding foreign interest, and they saw Amin as the best replacement for Obote. He was, after all, a former British soldier and understood the British methods. It had been suspected that British intelligence assisted Amin in his seizure of power. But Amin had the military and the police in his pocket already, and he easily seized control on January 25, 1971, while Obote was flying back home. Amin had been recruiting for the army from various regions that were connected to him by blood and marriage. His army would become a mercenary force made up of Congolese, South Sudanese, and other groups, as they would have no direct connection to the groups Amin wanted targeted, and their loyalty would be to him. On February 2, 1971, Amin declared himself president, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Uganda Army Chief of Staff, and Chief of Air Staff. He suspended several provisions of the Ugandan constitution and created an advisory defense council staffed by loyal military officers, with himself as the chairman. Obote was enabled to return to Uganda and forced into exile, and he would not return home until after Idi Amin was forced out of power himself in 1979. Once Obote was out of the picture, Amin immediately began explaining to the people of Uganda that their former president had been a criminal, and Amin was just trying to protect the country and the people from his criminal acts. Amin was extremely popular with the people at first, mainly because all media, TV, radio, and newspapers were state-operated, and Obote had controlled the news, both foreign and domestic, which Amin now controlled when he became dictator. Idi Amin traveled the nation, visiting villages and small towns, dancing in the streets with the locals, judging sports competitions, and generally spreading goodwill. Most Ugandans believed in him and supported him, at least for a while. He acted like an ordinary man, which he was. His very informal demeanor and apparent concern for the common people, of which he was one, came through. He even had 6 wives and had married into several ethnic groups, strengthening these bonds. It was also reported that he had at least 30 mistresses during his time as dictator. Amin disbanded the intelligence agency known as the General Service Unit, which had been created by Obote, and replaced it with the State Research Bureau with its headquarters at the Kampala suburb of Nakasero. This location became the headquarters for torture and executions for the rest of his rule. Amin used the military, police, and the Public Safety Unit as tools for ferreting out dissenters. Amin then placed military tribunals above the civil legal system and appointed trusted soldiers to top government positions and in control of all government-owned corporations, and informed the newly inducted civilian cabinet ministers that they would be subject to military courtesy and discipline. But Amin was also a true politician, and he proved his political savvy when he allowed King Mutesa II's body to be returned to Uganda in April 1971 for burial in his tribal homeland. Amin even presided over the state funeral. This political move proved to be very popular with the people. He also openly abolished Obote's secret police and granted amnesty to Obote's political prisoners and commuted death sentences. But Amin managed to hide his true nature at the time. As he was commuting sentences and releasing prisoners, he was busy creating his own killer squads, who targeted soldiers suspected of being loyal to Obote as well as their families. Amin targeted other ethnic groups, religious leaders, journalists, artists, senior bureaucrats, judges, lawyers, students, and intellectuals, criminal suspects, and even foreign nationals whom he suspected. Among the most prominent people killed by Amin were the Chief Justice Benedicto Kiwanuka, Anglican Archbishop Janani Luwum, and Joseph Mabiru, the former governor of the Central Bank of Uganda. Amin's hit teams killed between 5,000 and 6,000 soldiers from the Akoli, Langi, and other tribes right in their barracks as they were sleeping, who were thought to still be loyal to Obote. Amin always feared a coup against himself, so the enemies list grew. In 1971, Amin requested arms from Great Britain and Israel, but he could not show any method of payment. So Amin courted Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi, who agreed to assist. It came with conditions, with Amin agreeing to stop backing Anyana rebels in southern Sudan, stopping the Sudan-Uganda border tensions, and enlisting Sudanese soldiers into his army. Many of Uganda's people who still feared Amin fled to neighboring Tanzania, which created tensions and would spark a border war in 1972. Amin needed weapons to wage war, and he approached Israel again, which declined to help him. Amin never forgot that, but Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi offered his assistance once again and gave him a $25 million weapons package. Additionally, the Soviet Union quickly became Amin's largest arms supplier, sending Uganda tanks, jets, artillery missiles, and small arms, as well as Soviet and East German advisors and specialists. The East German Stasi and Soviet KGB became prominent in the intelligence bureaus, which alarmed the West, and many countries broke off diplomatic relations. In retaliation, Amin ordered the expulsion of over 500 Israelis and around 50,000, some say 80,000 Southern Asians, mostly Indians with British citizenship, from his nation. The foreign nationals included Israeli contractors and their companies and engineers who have been working on many large private and commercial building projects such as hospitals, schools, apartment buildings, airports, bridges, and roads. The Asian population consisted of many successful plantation and business owners, many in the coffee business, and Amin confiscated their property. Once these two segments of Ugandan society were gone, the nation lost 90% of its tax revenue, and due to the lack of higher formal technical education among the Ugandans, they were unable to handle the completion of these projects, and the economy plummeted. Jobs were lost, and agricultural production and export ground to a halt. Amin also murdered an estimated 500 Yemeni Hadrami Arab merchants who handled the import and export business. As a result, Uganda fell into a major economic depression, creating social turmoil and another refugee crisis that Tanzania was holding back. The international community began to look at Amin differently, and even other African despots began to distance themselves from him as a result. Amin seemed completely immune from all the negative international press he was receiving, which his people never saw or heard. Amin was making enemies, both real and imagined, and by the 1970s, his personality was no longer hidden. He became extremely paranoid, increasingly erratic, explosively violent, repressive, and totally corrupt. Fearing assassination, he routinely changed his security personnel, altered his travel schedules and modes of transportation at the last minute. and slept in different places with a small number of hand-picked and well-paid bodyguards. Fearing the army may revolt against him, he bribed them with expensive electronics, prostitutes, Cuban cigars, imported gourmet foods, alcoholic beverages, promotions, and fast, expensive cars. The land and businesses previously owned by the Asians were also included to buy their loyalty. All the while, many thousands of his civilians were arrested, tortured, and killed, most without any trial or formal charges. Political opponents, or even those who disagreed with him on national policies, just disappeared. There was even a popular saying that the crocodiles ate well. Amin was also stealing from the national treasury and living a lifestyle so lavish that one Saudi prince said that it is unbelievable that such a poor country could provide him such a grand lifestyle. During these tumultuous times, the Organization of African Unity elected Amin as its chairman in 1975, much to the astonishment of many nations around the world due to his horrendous policies. There were many rumors about his psychopathy that were reported to be urban legends, such as he kept human heads in his refrigerator, that he ordered 4,000 disabled people to be fed to the crocodiles. But these were proven to actually be true. But there was one fact that even he admitted to, and that was cannibalism. On a few occasions, he admitted to the act. Once in 1976, he said, "I have eaten human meat. It is very salty, even more salty than leopard meat." It was reported, but never confirmed, that he once personally dismembered a woman in front of her family and then proceeded to have her cooked. He then invited the dead woman's family to join him for dinner. In his book, State of Blood, The Inside Story of Idi Amin, former Ugandan cabinet minister Henry Kayemba stated that Amin's bizarre behavior derives partly from his tribal background. Like many other warrior societies, the Kakwa, Amin's tribe, are known to have practiced blood rituals on slain enemies. These involve cutting a piece of flesh from the body to subdue the dead man's spirit or tasting the victim's blood to render the spirit harmless. Such rituals still exist among the Kakwa. Amin's practices do not stop at tasting blood. On several occasions, he has boasted to me and others that he has eaten human flesh. According to those who knew him and survived, Amin was always mentally unstable, but there was also the suspicion that he had contracted syphilis, which, as it progressed, may explain his increasingly erratic and violent behavior. This seems logical, because back when he was a younger soldier, he was diagnosed with an undisclosed, sexually transmitted disease, and he refused treatment. In the mid-1970s, an Israeli doctor who had served in Uganda and gave Amin a physical told a Tel Aviv newspaper, "It is no secret that Amin is suffering from the advanced stages of syphilis, which has caused brain damage." On June 25, 1976, the Defense Council declared Amin president for life, but international problems would follow him as he continued to make very bad decisions. In June 1976, Amin, never forgiving Israel for not assisting him, allowed the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, external operations, and two members of the German Revolutionäre Zelen, all terrorists, who had hijacked an Air France flight from Tel Aviv to Paris to land and refuel at Entebbe airport. This mission will be the subject of another in-depth Forgotten History program, so stand by for that one. Amin provided them with his soldiers for security, food, and beverages as they held 246 passengers and 12 crew members hostage in the airport terminal. In response, Israel launched the world's most daring, extended, and dangerous hostage rescue mission in history, and that launched on July 3rd. But instead of giving in to terrorist demands and not satisfied with Amin's handling of the situation, despite offering to release some hostages, Israel sent a team of elite commandos to rescue those hostages in a surprise attack on Entebbe airport during the night of July 3rd. The result was that 101 of the 105 remaining hostages were liberated. Only one Israeli soldier lost his life during the operation, the commander, Colonel Danny Netanyahu. while all 7 hijackers and 20 Ugandan soldiers were killed. After this embarrassing turn of events, Amin ordered the execution of one of the hostages, a 74-year-old British-Israeli woman who had fallen ill during the hostage crisis and was being treated in a local hospital. Her disposition was only divulged by the 2017 release of British documents, where it was proven that the woman, Dora Bloch, was dragged from her hospital bed, screaming, shot to death, and dumped into the trunk of a car. The body of a white woman was later found on a sugar plantation 19 miles away, but the body was too badly burnt and disfigured to identify as Bloch. There was no forensic autopsy or matching of dental records available. This was the final straw for the UK, and the British severed all diplomatic ties with Uganda, and Amin proclaimed himself the conqueror of the British Empire and the last King of Scotland. In 1977, Amin ordered the killings of notable Ugandans such as Archbishop Janani Luwum and Interior Minister Charles Oboth Afumbi, and this brought the UN into the picture, and his fears of assassination attempts were well-founded. Amin was wounded during one of these attempted coups during Operation Mafuta, Mingi, in June 1977 by members of the military loyal to General Mustafa Adrisi, who was Amin's vice president. Amin's rampage became a bloodbath. When the UN decided to charge Amin with human rights violations in 1977, the African nations of the OAU, supported by Gaddafi and Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, blocked a United Nations resolution that would have held him accountable for his actions. This perception of African unity and support for Amin saw his senior officers vote to make him a field marshal, a gratuitous promotion with no real significance. However, Amin, in true style, gave himself other titles such as His Excellency President for Life, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the sea, and conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular. But Amin was on borrowed time. Uganda's main export, coffee, saw prices plummet as many nations stopped trade. In 1978, the U.S. alone accounted for 1/3 of Uganda's entire coffee exports, and it stopped buying the product and ended trade in 1978. The Carter administration cited the human rights violations and lack of free and fair elections as the reason. With a deteriorating economy and popular opposition to his rule, Amin's hold on power was growing increasingly weak. By this point, many Ugandans had fled to the UK and other African countries, while many of his soldiers had mutinied and also fled to Tanzania. In a desperate bid to remain in power, Amin ordered the invasion of Tanzania in October 1978, making the claim that they had instigated unrest and coerced Ugandans to leave their country. In response, Tanzanian forces responded, defeated Amin's forces, and then invaded Uganda. On April 11, 1979, Tanzanian and exiled Ugandan defectors captured Uganda's capital, Kampala, overthrowing Idi Amin. Amin fled to Libya, taking 4 of his remaining wives and more than 30 children along with him. Eventually, they moved to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. He remained there until 1989 when he used a fake passport to fly to Kinshasa, Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, to visit his only remaining supporter in Africa, fellow despot President Mobutu Sese Seko. On July 19, 2003, Amin's 4th wife, Nalango Medina Idi Amin, contacted the Ugandan president, Yoweri Museveni, to allow Amin to return home. Museveni replied that Amin would have to answer for his sins the moment he was brought back. Idi Amin died on August 16, 2003 while in exile in King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, from several organ failures, when his family disconnected him from life support. By the end of his rule, Idi Amin had ordered the killings of between 300,000 and 500,000 people out of a population of only 12 million. A couple of million more fled the country. Few in Uganda today remember him with fondness. After Amin's death, Former British Foreign Secretary David Owen revealed that during his tenure, he had proposed having Amin assassinated, stating, "I am not ashamed of considering it because his regime goes down in the scale of Pol Pot as one of the worst of all African regimes." In the end, the brutal dictator brought economic ruin, social unrest, and domestic terror, earning him the nickname, the Butcher of Uganda.
Thank you for watching Forgotten History. Please click like, subscribe, and share. Send us comments and show ideas, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time.